Hey there, fellow travelers. Mark here with Wolters World. Today we're in Croatia on a cruise through Europe. And today what we're going to talk about are the 5 things you're going to love and hate about cruising Europe. And when you cruise Europe, it's usually mostly like riverboat cruises or coastal cruises. Yes, there are the big ocean liners that hit big places like Barcelona and Lisbon, which are nice, but we're going to focus on these smaller European cruises because that's kind of a big market people are getting into, and I want to help travelers out so they can have a better time doing those riverboat cruises and those European cruises, because there's tons of stuff on Caribbean cruises, yes, but we're going to focus specifically on European cruises because they are a lot different. You have smaller boats, so there's less people. Also, no motion sickness because the river doesn't really have much going on. So that makes it a lot more enjoyable for a lot of people. But anyway, let's not talk about enjoyable. Let's talk about the things you're not going to like, because that's why it's the 5 love and hates. And the first thing you're not going to like when you take a European cruise is, and this is with a lot of cruises anyway, is you don't have any independence. This is not an independent traveler kind of thing. It is not your schedule. You are on the cruise ship schedule. You will eat breakfast from 7 to 9. You will be ready for the excursion at 8:30. You will be back on the boat by 11:30. They have these really strict rules when you're on here because they're trying to get people to see a lot of stuff. So it's kind of like, well, you sacrifice your independence to have them doing all the things for you, okay? So if you're a really big independent traveler, cruising can be a little frustrating, I will tell you that right there. But it does have a lot of benefits, and I'll talk about those in the loves, okay? Now, the second thing you might not like about going on a European cruise are the cost of the excursions or the limited number of excursions that are out there. When you take the big cruise liners, there's usually tons of different excursions, from zip lining to historical tours to lecture series to things like that. On these smaller boats, usually you have fewer excursions, but you still got to pay for the excursions as well. And so that added cost that adds on can be a bit frustrating because you're not sure, should I do the Croatia tour or not? And so you kind of think about that, but it's okay. I mean, that's what I always tell people. It's like, look at the destinations you're going, the itinerary. Are there places you know nothing about and it would be good to do a tour? Or are there other parts that you really want to learn more about? So yes, do the tour, or not do the tour because you just want to sit back and relax. And so what I did on this trip was I kind of looked and saw which of the cities I really want to learn more about. Gibenek, I would just love that town. I read about it, like, this sounds so cool. I want to know the history, so I made sure I signed up for that one. But I was in Hvar, and I'm like, do I do the tour in Hvar, or do I just want to sit in the bay and go to the beach and relax? So you kind of make those debates, but that extra cost and kind of lack of number of excursion options sometimes can be kind of an off-putter, but it's okay. It's not that bad overall, so you're okay there. The third thing you're not going to like, if we go back to the excursions, is since you basically all the European tours, every town you go to, they're going to have a city tour, a walking city tour, okay? And the thing with those is, if you're doing excursions day after day after day after day after day, I'm on an 8-day cruise, so you know that's excursion, 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 and there's usually sometimes multiple excursions in a day. You can get kind of worn out a bit, okay? And so one thing I say is, if you see all these excursions and maybe one doesn't appeal to you, and if you're going 5 days in a row, maybe take 1 day off. Because what happens is you just kind of get burned out. And so you go, oh great, it's ABD, another bloody church. And it kind of all blurs together because you do really focus in one area on these European cruises. Usually it's like, I'm on a Croatian Dalmatian coast cruise right now. Or you might be going to Bordeaux, focusing on wine and stuff around there, or the Rhine River, these little German towns, and it all kind of can blur together. So you do want to watch out for the burnout with the excursions. Now, the fourth thing you're not going to like when you go on these cruises is, well, it's a cruise ship, which means there's limited space, which means you usually have small rooms with limited space and limited plugs, okay? Look, cruise ships in general have smaller rooms. I know some of the nicer ones have big things, but usually have smaller rooms. Especially river cruises, they're even smaller boats to go on all these great places, so the rooms get smaller as well. So make sure you do pack light when you are going. A lot of times the cruise lines will have suggested clothing to have. If there's like a gala dinner or something, they'll explain, you know, what you might want to have, some good shoes for this walk, or a swimsuit for the beach. And so you have those things. So you might want to, you know, check up on that, but realize it is limited space and you can get a little tight. So what I've done is I've spent a lot of time up on the sun deck having a beer and enjoying my time up there with these great views, because that's what's cool is when you're going on these riverboat cruises, you're never just out at sea, okay? You're always next to something and you can just see stuff all the time. But anyway, sorry, I'm getting ahead of the loves, because you can tell I had a nice time when I was here. Also, I would say with the power outlets, usually you have one, maybe two outlets. I know my parents were on a river cruise a couple years ago, and actually they didn't have enough plugs, and so the cruise ship would take their phones for them and go plug them in where they had more plugs. I'm not cool with giving up my phone like that, okay? So what I recommend is make sure you can bring like a plug, like a little travel strip, which it will give you like 4 or 5 USB plugs in it, so you can charge your phone, you can charge your camera, you can charge your backup battery. Have those things, because it can make a difference. And especially if there's a few of you out there who've got 2 phones, 2 cameras, a tablet, it does kind of suck up when you only have that one plug, so do watch out for that. The 5th thing you're not gonna like when you go on a European cruise is if you get the wrong table at dinner. Look, on these smaller ships, they need to assign where people go. You don't usually just sit wherever you want. Usually you're at table 5 or 8 or something like that, and you're sat with the same 8 people for the entire trip, which can be cool, because if you get good people, it can be fun. But if you get the wrong people, well, that's where you can have issues. I know when I've talked to passengers on here, they say, and most of the passengers on here are 60 plus. That's one of the things I'll talk about, is usually cruising in Europe is an older demographic, like 60 and over. There are some younger people on there, but in general, it's an older crowd. Not that it's hate, I've made some really nice people, I'm just saying in general. But when I've talked to them, the one thing that comes up constantly with the things that they don't like, or things that can ruin a cruise, is getting that wrong table. Because maybe it's different political views, maybe it's different ideas on things. And the thing is, when you're on these little cruises, everyone's problem is everyone's problem. Their problem is your problem, okay? And so that can be a bit of an issue. I know one of the couples in here I've met, very nice people, you know, Gary and his wife, they've been super nice to me. And they got a table just for themselves, because the last cruise they went on, they said, well, it was a table with, like, you know, there was 4 Germans and then there was 4 French, and then they only talked to each other. They didn't talk to us, so we just kind of were sat there alone. And it kind of like made it for like an uncomfortable dinner, every single dinner and every single lunch and every single breakfast. So they just got their own table this time. And that's something you can ask for too, if you just want to have your own table, so you can have a nice romantic evening cruise with your sweetie. That is a doable thing. But another thing with the wrong table, I'd say, it's that the idea of their problem is your problem. So when people are late getting back to the boats, on the big Caribbean cruise liners and ocean liners, if you're late to get back to the boat, they leave you there. They're like, that's your problem, pal. These boats, since it's smaller, they tend to wait for the people, and so they'll wait and wait and wait. So if someone decides that they're going to stay longer at a museum, or they're going to have a lunch on shore and make everyone late, they'll make everybody late. I know we had a couple that came late onto our boat here, and people, when they came on, it was for the tender to come back, okay? Because we were out in went to this one little island, and they came back, finally got on the tender last, and people started booing them. Boo, boo, for coming late. I'm like, oh, wow. So that's one thing you might not like. But those are just little things you might not like when you do cruises in Europe. For me, it's only the independence thing that really gets me sometimes, but it works really well, because the things you're gonna love, dude, the thing you're gonna love the most, the reason why people love doing cruises in Europe is because it's no worry, no thinking traveling. Think about it. What's one of the toughest things to do when you're gonna go on a vacation? Honey, where are we gonna go? Sweetie, where are we gonna stay? What are we gonna do? What are we gonna eat? All those things, you don't have to make any of those decisions. You can just sit back and relax, because they do all the thinking, all the planning, all the hoteling, all the cooking, all the cleaning, just for you. And that's what's really nice about these river cruises, because they really have it all set up. Because, you know, I like Croatia. I came here before with my family, and we just took a ferry over and enjoyed the Istria part of Croatia. And this time I was thinking, well, I want to go back, but I don't know what I should see. Well, that cruise looks really cool. So I took this quasi cruise on the Bel de Adriatic. And yes, I'm the youngest person there, but it's been great because I got to see all these really cool towns all throughout the Dalmatian coast, but that I didn't even know about. And so that's what's cool, is they do all this planning, they do it all set up for you, so you don't have to worry. And that is the best thing about cruising, is the no thinking, no worrying, just sit back and let them take care of you thing. Now, the second thing that's really cool about doing these riverboat cruises and European cruises is you actually dock right in town. I mean, there's my ship, and literally on the other side of the parking lot is the castle walls. We are right there. You park in town, or you dock right in town. And so there's none of this, oh, I got to take a boat or, you know, a bus out to the docks an hour away to get onto a tender to go someplace else. No, the cruises in Europe, usually you're right there in town. Very easy to walk in, walk off. So if you don't want to have dinner on the ship tonight because you're like, you know what, I want to try something different, you can come off the ship at night, go into town, have a drink and stuff like that, still be back by the time the ship leaves because they really want you there, okay? So you don't make any problems for people. But it's really cool because you're right in town. And that's one of the things that I've really enjoyed, is that I can do these things and see the town and just walk right on the ship. No trying to figure out, when is the bus going back? Where do I need to figure it out? No, it's right there. Ta-da! And what's really cool about that, it's right in town. When you go up on those decks and you're just traveling around, you see everything right there. And so one thing I was doing, I was sitting up on the deck, just drinking a beer, looking at the islands going by, looking out at the beautiful city walls here, and it's just one of those nice things because you're right there, and that's what's cool about it. Now, the third thing you're going to like about when you go on these European cruises is you really get to see a lot of towns and like in a region really, really well. Because what happens on these, especially the riverboat cruises, is usually focus on one area. So it might be we're on a Bordeaux wine tour, so you're taking the boat around and seeing the vineyards and learning about wine and stuff like that there. Or you're on a castle cruise on the Rhine to see the little castles along the Rhine and stuff like that. Or you're doing a Dalmatian coast tour where we're just hitting everything on the Dalmatian coast in Croatia, and we get to see Montenegro too, so that's nice. And so they have that focus thing, but you get to see a lot of cities, and a lot of cities you never would have thought of coming to. Yes, Split and Dubrovnik, people have heard about, but Šibenik, I've never heard about it, and that's actually been my favorite town on this trip. And that's what's cool about these things, is you get to go to so many towns, so many places, and do that. Now, the drawback to that is, since you're doing so many places on the boat, you don't always get a lot of time in them, so that goes into that independence kind of thing, is you might see this cute, beautiful town, you want to stay out longer, but hey, we got to go. And so that can be that can be one of the issues with that, though. Now, the fourth thing you're going to like about coming on these European cruises is the very much laid back, relaxed attitude on the ships. And it comes with good food. Okay? Now, I know it's an older crowd usually on these cruise ships, and so you may say, oh, it's more laid back because you get an older crowd, they're not doing dynamic things and stuff. No. Just in general, European cruising is much more laid back. Since you don't have the big ships, there's usually not a casino and a nightclub, but at night, yes, they'll have music and you can dance and stuff like that. They'll have little shows put on by the staff and stuff, but really it's much more of a relaxing kind of cruise, because you sit back and you sit on the sun deck and you watch the islands go by. You do sit out there and see the cities and the churches and the cathedrals and the stone walls and stuff like that. It is a much more relaxed atmosphere on there. And so if you're looking for a way to really cut back, I mean, I'll tell you, this 8-day cruise has been my most relaxing, least amount of stress trip I've been on in a long time, because I haven't had to worry about transportation. I haven't been trying to figure out is, how do I get the bus/ferry combination from Split to Hvar and these kind of things. No, I'm not worrying about that. I'm not worrying about what we need to eat. I'm not worried about, what were going to be the main sites and stuff like that. I mean, I'm doing the research, but it's nice not to have to worry about it. So I can just kick back and have that beer and go enjoy the stuff. So that's what's really cool about it. But also the food has been very nice. Now, one thing probably some people will say about riverboat cruises is, since it's got a smaller galley and smaller restaurant, usually there's fewer choices. There's not the big buffets you have on the big boats. It's usually like you get like one or two choices for your dinner or your lunch, and that's about it. So that's one thing some people don't like, but honestly the food has been fantastic. And in general, on these European cruises, you have much more discerning clientele, so the food level is a lot higher. So you're not getting your burgers and fries, you're getting local food a lot of the times, because we've had a Dalmatian coast night, we've had a Croatia theme night, we've had all these things to see the real food. So you're not just stuck at the buffet, you're getting real cooked food. Because think about it, cooking for 100 people on a boat like this, you can do a lot better job than cooking for 3,000 people on a big boat. And the fifth thing you're going to like about doing the river cruises and the European cruises is the people you meet while you're cruising. Yes, the people in the cruise and staff, you really get to know them because there's a lot fewer people in general, but I'm more talking about the people you actually sit with. Now, I know I said they could be your biggest problem, but they can be one of the biggest kind of benefits and pluses of going on a cruise. Because think about it, since European cruises are much more focused in terms of theme, whether it's wine or beer or history or something like that, or a region, you're really choosing choosing the exact type of cruise that works for you. And so if you're doing all this research to find a cruise that fits right for you, those people at the table with you are probably doing something similar to get the right cruise for them. And most likely you're gonna have more things in common. I know my parents have met some wonderful people while they've been cruising on the river cruises. I mean, they've been doing it for 20 years. They go like on 2 or 3 a year. So mommy and daddy gave me some of the big pointers here to help out. Because I've got my own thing, but my mom's like, look, you gotta talk about the people because they could be awesome or it can be hell. But like my parents have met some wonderful people on these cruises, and actually now they have their buddies they go cruising with. These are not friends I had as a child, okay? These are people they met on the cruises, and now they'll go on other cruises with them to Mexico and other places. You know, they went to Greece last summer, and now they're planning trips to France and Mexico and stuff with these people they met. And that's what's nice, is even if you're not in the demographic, you know, at my table, the people at my table, they're, you know, 20, 30, 40 years older than I am. But they're nice people, and I'm having a really good time learning from them. They're learning from me, so I get to have this history, and it's really kind of a cool thing because you really get to kind of bond with the people that are there. Last night, I went to the sword dancing here in Croatia with Jane, and Jane and I were like, yes, we'll go together because her friend was going to stay in that last night, so we were going together. Yeah, me with my mature lady. She wasn't a cougar, no, but she was a nice lady, and so you have that. And that's one of the things that's really nice. You really get to know the people on these European cruises, the staff, the crew, and all these kind of things, and that's one of the best parts of it. Anyway, that was kind of my 5 love and hates of taking a European cruise. And if you're going to be doing a cruise in Europe, and I do recommend, if you're looking for an easy, let's figure out what to do, or I don't want to figure it out, cruising isn't a really easy thing to do, but I will say overall the demographic is about 60 plus is the usual age for people to go on these things. So if you're a family or you're younger, you might want to make sure you do the research to find ones that are more geared toward that, for maybe more energetic activities or things like that. But overall, I've been very happy, even though I am 20, 25, 30 years younger than the most of the people on here. It has been a really nice time for me because it has been so relaxing. I've seen so many great towns when I'm here. Oh, also one of the things I have, like the European cruises, usually they're getting a local guide at each one of the towns, and it's like good local guides. Not the, oh, I give you, in Copenhagen you go and there's people giving free tours in the center. Yeah, they're college students that just memorized a rough guide or a Rick Steves that are just spurting that back out to you. The guides they get on these cruise ships, especially my Costal Cruise, I've been very impressed with the guides they have. They're locals that know their stuff, and they can answer not just the first question, but the second, third, fourth, and fifth question down the line, and that's what's really cool about it. So anyway, I hope that helps you know a little bit more about cruising Europe.